Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of May and the new supermoon that we have coming up on the 7th or 8th, depending on where in the world you live. But first of all, I'd just like to take a few moments to just thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the care, the support, the love that you send me. It's deeply appreciated, and I get very humbled. I get very touched by all your very kind messages. So I wouldn't be doing this without you. And I just want to really make sure that I thank you. So all of you who have done that, bless you. I feel it coming through the ether as well. So thank you. Okay, now let us get on to the astrology. April, as anticipated, has been a huge month energetically. I'm filming this on the 22nd of April, and we've had the total solar eclipse on the 8th of the month, and then the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on the 20th, 21st. And both of those astrological aspects, remember, were not just for one day each. The total solar eclipse, we will feel the consequences of that for the rest of this year. Jupiter-Uranus was really beginning that conjunction, a new what's called synodic cycle, where two planets come together in conjunction and it forms a whole new cycle for those planets. And that's the beginning of a new 14-year cycle. And so a lot of how they have expressed as anticipated has actually been internal. Yes, there have been events in the world that reflect them, absolutely, but they've largely been so far, I think, internal shifts, which have been wonderful, actually, really wonderful. I know many people around the eclipse, myself included, because I had a heck of a intense build up to that eclipse, going through the eclipse. Many of us felt this feeling of purging, of clearing, of cleansing, of relief as we went through that, in a much lighter, clearer, more blissful, if you like, energy coming out of the other side of that. Equally, people felt that on the 18th of the month and also on the 20th, 21st of the month, that big conjunction. But it's going to go on going in waves. And please don't feel that if you haven't experienced that shift yet, that it's not going to happen, or you're not in the right place, or in divine timing. We all have our own soul contracts. We are all running our own race. So please don't judge by anyone else. But the fact that this is happening for more and more people should be hugely encouraging for everyone, that this energy of expansion, of heart opening, of awakening, of higher frequency is more and more available to more of us. That's the exciting bit. And so what seems to be happening is people are shedding the ancestral trauma, their current personal trauma, their karma, whatever it is, the baggage of the weightiness of the past, or the pain of physical conditions. So much is being shared. And it's not that we don't remember it. We have still clear memories of those things, but we've lost the emotional charge. We've lost the emotional charge. So we've been able to transmute those things into wisdom, integrate them into wisdom. And I think that's really been the nature of those shifts. But certainly expansion, certainly heart opening, certainly awakening. And there's a real momentum that's building now with that. Okay, now will the chaos and the turbulence at the 3D level continue? Absolutely. Absolutely, all of this year and into some of next. But remember that this is part of the process, and we don't have to live at that level. It's just like you've decided to build a beautiful new house, and you've got your architect's plan, you've got your vision, and occasionally you visit the site of where your old house is being demolished, and it's a terrible mess with JCB lorries and builders' dust and rubble. and you can't believe you ever entered this process, but nevertheless, you're still so excited by the vision that you can see in your mind's eye of this beautiful new house that is going to emerge from all of this that you're building. And you then go home. You don't live on the building site. You visit occasionally to see the progress, as it were, to see what's happening. And I hope that's quite a useful analogy, that we don't have to live in the rubble. We don't have to live in the demolition. We know it's happening, we can observe it, but we can keep our state of being in a different state of excitement for the vision that's coming. And I'm going to be coming back to some of that at the end of this video in a way that I hope will be helpful for you. Now, May has very different energy. 4 planets are going to be changing signs through this month, and we start the beginning of the month with a bang. We have Mars entering Aries, 0 of Aries. This is very first degree of the zodiac. This is on the world axis. This is what I call the creator's degree, if you like. Mars is in its own sign of Aries, so this is very strong energy that could manifest on the world stage. As I say, this is warrior energy. It's to do with stepping into your courage, your bravery, your sovereignty, your pioneering energy. It's an ability to go solo. It's very much linked to sovereignty. It's very, very good for new projects, new initiatives. So see where 0 degrees of Aries falls in your chart. And if you don't know, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to this link below. You get a 2-part video series that will explain how to find these points in your chart that I constantly refer to in the updates. This is not personal birth chart analysis. These are teaching videos for you to get deeper meaning from my updates by understanding where these points fall in your own birth chart. So, and you can view those for as long as you like, as many times as you like. So this sense of a new initiative, this drive, this energy to create something new is very strong at the beginning of the month. Also, we have Pluto moving stationary retrograde on the 2nd. This will be felt several days either side, because whenever, particularly an outer planet changes sign, it's like a huge ship that slows and slows and slows and comes to be stationary and then gradually moves off that spot in the opposite direction. And so Pluto's been drilling down at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And therefore, if you have any planets or points between 0 and 4 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, you will be feeling this energy strongly. And this may manifest in the outer world as, as I say, several days to either side of that, as might makes right, some kind of assertion of power in the world or greater attempted control by the authorities in the world. But personally, the way this, usually Pluto transits last 1 year to 2 years. And they can feel quite stressy on the way in to these transits, because it's like some person or group of people or authorities are trying to exert power over you or manipulate you or control you in some way. But the purpose of these transits always is empowerment, for you to step into your own power, because so often this is a replay of childhood patterns. And so the purpose of this transit is to say, okay, you're going to do the same thing, repeat the same pattern, or are you going to actually break the pattern and step into your power this time around? It's about empowerment. So that's really important to remember, stepping into your sovereignty. So that's on the 2nd of the month, that archetype will be magnified. As I say, 4 planets are changing sign this month. 3 of them are the personal planets, which change sign, as we know, very regularly. But that means that 5 planets, in fact, are at 29 degrees of their sign, but what is known as the anaretic degree. And the anaretic degree, when a planet is at that point, 29 degrees of its sign, it often expresses in its shadow expression of that sign, the less positive aspect of that sign. Let me explain. So firstly, we have the personal planets that change sign very regularly. Mercury is going to be moving to 29 degrees of Aries on the 15th of the month, just before it tips into Taurus. The Sun is at 29 degrees of Taurus on the 20th of the month, just before it tips into Gemini. Venus is at 29 degrees of Taurus on the 23rd of the month, just before it tips into Gemini also. Jupiter is at 29 degrees of Taurus from the 21st to the 25th of May, and I'll talk about that next time because there's a lot to say about that, just before it tips into Gemini on the 25th, 26th of the month, which will also speed the energy up. Gemini is quick, it's mutable air. And then the fifth planet at 29 degrees of its sign is Neptune. It's not changing sign yet. It doesn't move into Aries until March next year. And even then, not fully. It won't move fully into Aries until the beginning of 2026. But it's at 29 degrees of Pisces, its own sign, the very last sign of the zodiac, between the 3rd of May and the end of August. 3rd of May and the end of August, quite a long time. So one of the ways it can manifest as the anaretic degree is Pisces, to do with the seas and the oceans. Neptune, lord of the sea. It's to do with a lot of flooding, potentially. We've seen what's happened in Dubai recently. In the UK, for instance, I believe we've had our wettest winter on record ever. Until the last week or so, it rained almost every day since the beginning of October. There's been massive flooding across the country. Unknown, really unknown. Farmers have been saying they haven't known this in their lifetimes. So that has implications for agriculture, which I'll come back to in a moment. But many areas, and we know there are reasons for this, and I'm sure many of you understand when I say there are reasons for this. But flooding is happening in many areas of the world. It's also to do with anything to do with water. There can be issues around pollution, toxicity, and also just a general feeling of emotional overwhelm. Pisces is one of the most sensitive water signs, probably the most sensitive, in fact, water sign. So it can just be a feeling of everything is just too much. I'm just sinking here. However, I'm going to come back to a very positive, I think, expression of this, 29 degrees of Pisces, at the end of this video. So, but certainly, not only is 2024, has it got a very strong theme of endings and beginnings, but May as a month reinforces that endings and beginnings theme. So shifts in energy. The energy is going to feel different, and by the end of the month, it's certainly going to feel faster. Let us now look at the new moon, new supermoon, in fact, coming up in Taurus on the 7th or 8th of the month, depending on where you live. Here we go. So remember that the total solar eclipse in Aries on the 8th of April, that was also a supermoon. It means that the moon is much closer in its orbit to the Earth, and that has a pull on the tectonic plates and on our psyches too. Now, I've set this for England. This is where I live. This actually happens on the 7th of the month at 8:22 p.m. Pacific, and it happens in the UK, Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Time, 3:22 on the clock, British Summer Time, it's 4:22. Ignore the houses, ignore the clock face unless you live in England. We're just going to talk about where the planets fall and their aspects to each other. So when we have a new moon, the sun and moon are always together. So 1822 of Taurus. And a new moon every month is the perfect time to set a new intention. for the new seed that you want to plant. So set a new intention, see where this falls in your chart, because ideally your intention needs to be conditioned by the house area where it falls. You know, is this in your careers, in your family home, your house of health? Where is it falling in your chart? Condition your intention by the area of life that this is falling in for you. I always set a new intention for the earth now as well. Gaia is going through her own upgrade too. So we have 5 planets here in Taurus. The sign of fixed earth, the sign of the human body. 4 of them actually are in conjunction. Sun, Moon, Uranus, Jupiter. And therefore, this is really highlighting the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction again. You can still see they are operationally, pretty closely in conjunction here, 22, 25. And so this new moon, new supermoon is highlighting that. It's like a reboot again of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And so therefore, all of the themes that I've talked about in the 2 videos that I focused on that, you can go back and remind yourself if you'd like to. So with Taurus, the urge is for safety and stability. The urge is very much to keep things steady. Taurus doesn't like sudden change, doesn't like anything rocking the boat, wants to keep things as they are, wants to keep things long-term, stable, that kind of thing. However, the impetus of Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is to break up old stale patterns, break up anything that's routine, anything that's become deadening. So again, these are not easy bedfellows, because, and Uranus always represents what we have already outgrown at the soul level. So there are aspects of this month which are fast. Mars in Aries, Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus here. Jupiter moving into Gemini the last week of the month. Speedy things, whereas Taurus wants to slow everything down. Keep it steady. No surprises. Taurus doesn't like surprises. So the way I feel this could work is you may see a lot of change happening. I think there's absolutely no doubt we're going to see a lot of change happening in our outer world, and a lot of jumps and opportunities and shifts in our energy frequency, as I've just been talking about, that are incredibly exciting and positive. But there is a need to keep our internal anchor rock solid. This is about our center, our radio dial, everything operating from this very steady center of, I know who I am. I can easily, within moments, come back to this center. Keep everything simple, steady. It's almost like your internal state, to a large extent, is quite slow and observing, while other things are giving you the opportunity to make jumps. I hope that makes sense, because we can only take the most positive opportunity for the jumps in frequency if we're steady in our inner self. If we're scattered, we're scattering our power. We're not going to get the greatest benefit of the jump. I hope I'm making sense here. We need to have that feeling of, yeah, I'm absolutely operating from my center. And then, yes, I can really, from this rock solid center of stability, of knowing who I am, I can take the greatest opportunity for what's being offered to me in that quantum jump of consciousness. but don't scatter. The potential for scattering is much greater once Jupiter moves into Gemini in that last week of the month. So it's quite complex here, speedy things, but keeping your center very, very solid. Keep it simple. Really go, feng shui your life, feng shui your energy, so that only things that really matter become a focus in your life. Get rid of anything extraneous, superfluous that isn't adding to your growth. This has really been going on since about 2018 when Uranus entered Taurus, but particularly now when the jumps are going to be potentially so big for us. So Taurus is also about agricultural systems, our food growing, all our food production. And that is emphasized also because this new moon is trine to Ceres here. So it's really a strong suggestion that there are going to be new opportunities coming in, because Ceres also is in a trine to Uranus as well, and to Jupiter, this quadruple conjunction, new ways of growing food. I had a wonderful conversation with Catherine McBean recently, who is heading up the People's Food and Farming Alliance, about all of those developments about in the UK, particularly the farmers' networks that are developing, the farmers' markets, farmers' online shops, really exciting. And that kind of template is going out to the rest of the world as well. So there's some very, very positive and exciting things. Are the farmers' protests going to continue? Yes, I believe absolutely. Not only because we have the ongoing Uranus-Jupiter aspect. Uranus is about rebellion, revolution in Taurus, food growing, farming, the land, agriculture, but also because Mercury and Eris in Aries, being outwardly vocal, are square to Ceres. Yes, they will most certainly continue, and I think that's probably a very necessary protest. Food is fundamental. There could well be further developments in digital currencies at this time. Taurus is also about wealth, currencies, banking, that kind of thing. It's a new supermoon, new step. Uranus in Taurus, even on its own, is about digital Uranus, Taurus, wealth, currencies. So we could see further developments in attempts at centralized digital currencies. I believe there will be also developments in decentralized currencies, because the Aquarius energy, Pluto in Aquarius, is about decentralization. Ruled by Uranus, decentralization, grassroots up, communities, collaborations, not centralized top down. That's Capricorn, which we're moving away from. So keep coming back to stillness, dropping into stillness. Taurus is about tuning into the natural rhythms of the earth, bare feet on the grass, hugging a tree, listening to bird song, that kind of thing. Just staring at a blue sky, if you're lucky enough to have one. Just absolute morphing into the oneness of nature. Listening to sacred music, candle gazing, watching your breath. Find your default method of, within moments, you are able to drop into stillness. And it's beautiful. You just feel complete bliss when you're there. We have new bliss codes coming in, which many of us can feel now. And really, when you can access them, if you're able to access them, just milk it. Boy, I am just in bliss right now. This is what I don't want this moment to end. If you wake up in the morning and your pillow's really comfy and you're cozy, snug as a bug in a rug, milk that bliss. If you're in nature, milk that bliss. If you're in springtime and all the new leaves are coming out on the trees that are that brilliant lime green, that it's electrical life force, milk that bliss whenever you can. because that will keep you in a very good state. So seeing Earth as Gaia, seeing Earth not just as Earth to be pillaged and exploited and ravaged and polluted in the way we have in the past so unconsciously, but see her as Gaia. She is a living consciousness going through her own upgrade. And I think this new supermoon and the times that we are in will make us much more sensitive to the Earth and all of her needs. And I know it may not look like that on the nightly news or what appears to be happening in your local area, but again, I'm going to come back to something different at the end of this video. Couple of other things I'd like to pick up here is that there's a dwarf planet called Manwë, who in the creation myth, I haven't put Manwë in here, but Manwë's at 3 degrees of Aries. Manwë with his wife Vada in the creation myth actually created the cosmos. Manwë is said to be the highest archangel, closest to the mind of God, the highest intelligence. And very much being part of that original creator myth, he is being very energized right now by Mars to help to create this birth of new Earth that we are absolutely going through right now. We are absolutely birthing new Earth. No doubt about it. Also, want to point out that the new supermoon is very tightly, doesn't look like it, but it is very tightly square to our wonderful Chariklo. Chariklo I haven't mentioned for a while. She hasn't come up in the geometry, but remember in myth she was the wife of Chiron, and she helped to heal him simply by her state of being. To me, she is very related to the Buddhist eternal state of being, that state of stillness, permanent stillness, and just how certain people, just by their state of being, can heal. So she's again about dropping into stillness. She's reinforcing this theme of we just need to learn how dropping into stillness, paradoxically, is how we make the best, how we maximize the frequency jumps, the consciousness jumps. We've got to be in that state of stillness to receive them. That's possibly expressing it better than I did before. So yeah, this 0 point where we can heal, we can feel peace. She's a soul midwife, Chariklo. She's there at times of transition of life to death, but she's also very present at transitions of consciousness. And we are going through a very big transition in consciousness, as I'm sure you're well aware. Just a couple of other things I want to mention as well. Just a few days after this new supermoon, on the 10th, we have quite a feisty day because Mars comes into a semi-square with Uranus. That's a very uppity, revolutionary, rebellious energy. On the 11th, we have the moon square to Mars. That's quite angry energy, potentially on behalf of the people. And we also have Mercury coming to exactly conjunct Eris then, being vocally forceful, standing for truth, standing for justice, standing for freedom, standing for social equality in every sense, no one excluded. So those are some of the aspects that I think are worth discussing. But I want to come to some bigger aspects here, really. Sedna has literally just shifted from the end of Taurus on 27th of April. It's been there since, I believe, 1966 in Taurus. Remember, Sedna has an 11,400-year orbit. So it just tipped into Gemini. And Sedna also, remember in myth, that she was in a canoe with her father and a big storm blew up, and she, in order to save himself, her father threw her out of the canoe, She tried to climb back in and hang on with her fingers, and he chopped her fingers off. And she sank down to the deep, deep, freezing depths of the oceans. But she transmuted into beautiful sea creatures of whales and turtles. So she also is about deep stillness and silence at this time. She reminds us of the myth. But in that stillness, she metamorphized, if I can use that verb. She transformed completely into a different state of being. Now, she will stay in Gemini until 2067, and I do mean 2067. And I'll talk a lot more about Sedna and Gemini as the years go by. Certainly, now being trying to Pluto, she's going to be a lot about new inventions, new technology, AI, big time, moving fast. AI is moving at a phenomenally quick rate. She also reminds us, father chopping her fingers off, about the betrayal of the patriarchy. I think just touching on AI briefly, and I'll talk much more about it, as I say, going forwards, but with AI, it's already in our lives, as we know right now, and it can make our lives, enormously easier. I've got a friend at the moment who's involved in a very big legal case, and it would have taken him many, many weeks to prepare the information for that. And because he was using ChatGPT, that information was actually produced for him in minutes. And so that was a wonderful thing. I would just ask you to use your discernment with AI. Make your own choices, but think long-term and strategically. If something is just kind of nifty and novel and convenient, really think long-term about where that particular kind of AI may lead. And I have my own very strong views on it, as you would probably guess from me being a registered bumpkin. But you must make your own choices on that. So, but Sedna, particularly in the last couple of years, it's been at 29 degrees, again, this anaretic degree of Taurus, reminding us of how we have pillaged our earth, we've polluted, we've exploited. It's been to do with avarice, the shadow side of Taurus, greed, service to self, money, Taurus, accumulating resources for self, and again, betrayal by the patriarchy being a very strong theme. So, we have some very clear, even though this is very complex energy at this new supermoon, I think we've got some very clear themes coming up. Now, what I'd like to talk about here is, and it's partly Sedna moving into Gemini, the metamorphosis is not going to happen just by us getting more information. Gemini trying to, Pluto in Aquarius, mind, both of them, more information. That transformation for humanity is not going to happen that way. We must drop into our hearts. We must learn to drop into our hearts to enable that metamorphosis for humanity to happen. Now, the heart is, as you may know, the very first organ to develop after conception in the fetus. It's the very first organ to develop. And it has the largest toroidal field, as we obviously are birthed and grow. It has the largest toroidal field of any organ in the body, larger, I think 5,000 times greater, if I'm correct in that, 5,000 times greater than that of the brain, certainly much bigger, and the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain does to the heart. And here I'm not talking about the heart as a kind of puffy pink romantic, Valentine's Day type romantic love. I'm talking about the heart as an electromagnetic organ. And it reminds me here of two channelers I respect greatly. A few years ago, Lee Harris was channeling the Z's, the beings he channels, and when I get kind of electrified by a phrase, I take note of it. They said, "We are connected to the cosmos via our hearts. We are connected to the cosmos via our hearts." And Zach, an aspect of Dwal Kul, who's channeled by my very good friend Janet Trelaw, he said, our birth charts are etched in our hearts. Our birth charts are etched in our hearts. I blew fuses when I heard that. And it's because the heart is an electromagnetic organ. This is going to be very much how we go through this metamorphosis. Because we are going to live much more intentionally. I'm going to come back to this chart in a moment, so I'll keep sharing. When we have a thought, everything starts with a thought. A thought is an electrical impulse, but it's then becomes an emotion, a feeling, which is an electromagnetic wave. And that electromagnetic wave comes from the heart. We get an emotion, we get a feeling, we get a desire about something. And that's how our intentions become ignited, if you like, or propelled from that electromagnetic wave of the heart. That's why I think all the positive thinking in the world doesn't necessarily help you to manifest. You have to drop into our heart to have that very strong desire to magnetize that manifestation back to us in our lives. So what's interesting here, and this will be an ongoing aspect for all of this year and through much of next year too, I hope you can see that from Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces, there's you can barely see it, but there's a quincunx here, a little green dotted line here, to Haumea, 044 Scorpio, and another green dotted line, quincunx. This is actually connecting to Sedna, 0 of Gemini here. So I know it looks off here, but it's actually connecting to Sedna. So this is Neptune is out of sign. If it was just into Aries here, you could see it more easily. But this is known as a yod, or a finger of fate, or a finger of God. It's where we have a sextile joining two planets. Here it's Neptune and Sedna. Again, as I say, if Neptune was at 0 of Aries, we could see that more easily, but they are in sextile, and they are both by quincunx, 150 degrees, aspecting Haumea, dwarf planet Haumea. So it's like a long, skinny triangle. The orbs are very tight here. You can only have sort of 2 degrees to either side for a yod. So a yod has, I think, divine purpose, finger of God, finger of fate. And what is fascinating here, I went on a bit of one of my meanders here. One of my meanders, because if we take Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces, we have a Sabian symbol for every degree. But what you have to do is round up the degree to the next degree, i.e. 30 degrees, to read the Sabian symbol. So the Sabian symbol for 30 degrees of Pisces is, these come from Dane Rudyard, brilliant astrologer Dane Rudyard. A majestic rock formation resembling a face is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal Neptune ideal of greatness. And as he grows up, he begins to look like it. So what this Sabian symbol is about is the power of clearly visualizing your ideals, Neptune, to mold your life around that ideal. This is like quantum jumping, or the way that quantum physics works, that we focus on the end point, we focus on where we want to get to, we focus on what we want, and then we pour all of our energy into that to make that real, to manifest in our lives. But because this is also the very last degree and minutes, if you like, of the zodiac, this is also the end of a major evolutionary cycle, but it holds within it the seed of a new beginning already, the seed of a new beginning, a new evolutionary cycle. And we activate this new evolutionary cycle by our focus and our attention. You become a manifestation of your belief. So Sedna, we've already talked about how she transmuted herself from a human being, completely went through a metamorphosis into these beautiful sea creatures. So we have great malleability here. And the malleability is added to further by dwarf planet Haumea. Now, I've talked about dwarf planet Haumea a lot, how she's a very powerful regenerative energy, how she can birth babies all over her body, she can transform herself from an old crone to a young maiden. And I quoted this from Alison Chester Lambert a couple of years ago. You may remember, I'm quoting from Alison's book, Starry Messengers. I interviewed Alison recently. And I want to quote a passage about Haumea from her book, because it's all about this malleability. She said, Haumea gave birth to children from her brain amid slime, and they would become chiefs, islands, or human babies. So to put it in a nutshell, she's Mother Nature transformed into anything. And I made the point when I was talking about this a couple of years ago, that in Scorpio in particular, which has to do with medicine and injections, I believe that Haumea also represents for us, as part of her archetype, stem cell medicine. The revolution with stem cell medicine to regenerate ourselves, because you know that stem cells can actually repair they can become any part of the body. So the purpose of my meander here is to say, and it kind of links with what Dr. Jude Currivan was talking about too, about in a time of maximum chaos, we have the greatest potential to make a leap in our state of being. Here we have an incredibly powerful finger of God, finger of fate, that is all about malleability of our reality, regeneration, and stem cells around creating not only new earth, but new human. New human. Homo luminous. And that is what, and this will run all of this year and much of next year. So this is an astrological signature, I believe, that is incredibly powerful. And I believe from now on, our hearts are running the show. Our hearts are in constant communication with the unified field, the quantum soup from which we pull our individual realities. It's very, very malleable. Just depends on our superpower, our hero power, focus on what we want to manifest in this world. I hope I'm making sense here, because I'm thoroughly enjoying this rambling, but I hope it's actually helpful for you. So, what I want to talk about now, and I can stop sharing here. What I want to talk about now is the light. Because I think this links to the heart too. Many people are talking about new light coming onto our earth and being absorbed by us as human beings as well. Many people are talking about this. Jim Self was referring to it, Jeffrey Hoppe from the Crimson Circle, wonderful Sandra Walter talks about it, Magenta Pixie's talking about it, Diana Cooper's talking, there are many, many people in their various modalities and channelings are talking about this new light. Nancy Rebecca has been talking about this new light as well. And I want to quote Nancy Rebecca because she talked about it in some detail. And I'll actually put her video below this one so you can see I'm being hopefully very respectful and true to what she was saying about the light, the new light. She's experienced some very tall, white-robed beings coming to her that identify themselves as Oma, A-U-M-A, called Oma. And they say, are bringing diamond light to the earth, this new light, silver diamond light to the earth. And they explain that this would have a larger surge of light on the 20th of April. Well, isn't that interesting? Because that's when we had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction at that time, that we anticipated as a surge of electromagnetic energy. Silver, they explained, the silver light is linked to wisdom. Well, wisdom is the archetype of Jupiter. Diamond, they explained to Nancy, is representative of knowledge. Well, that's the archetype of Uranus, higher mind, knowledge. Nancy isn't an astrologer, she readily admits, so she didn't realize that. So they are perfectly explaining the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So this new light, which is bringing the awakening on Earth, is really about new light code particles. And they explain that the higher the frequency, and this new light is very high frequency, the more complex the geometry. And because we are raising our frequency and we are able to embody more of this new light, because we're becoming the light body, we are able, therefore, to also hold more complex geometry and hold more knowledge. This is very exciting. And at this new supermoon in Taurus, this is also signaling, Taurus has to do with the body, and it's highlighting that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. This is really signaling a reboot of that, another step up in that light body activation. As we step into the new human, we step into the Homo luminous. And light is carried by water. Light is carried by water. We are water beings, as we know. You know this from all the work with Randy Hatton, Veda Austin. So many people now focused on some wonderful work with water. And I'm in a bit of a kind of alchemy over water myself, and I'm not going to go down too much of that passageway today, but the light is carried by water and is electromagnetic. And I believe it's this. I believe it's the water, because water is present everywhere in the universe, that is really connecting our hearts to the greater cosmos. I believe it's linked to not only the light, but also the water. There's something about the water being God consciousness and being primary in a bigger way than I've ever understood it before, that is linking us to the bigger cosmos. And I believe that we're on the brink of really understanding that in a much bigger way that is going to be thrilling for us. Well, it's thrilling. It's going to be thrilling for me anyway, because I feel I'm just kind of on the brink of that. And I'm not a scientist, you know, I'm not a quantum physicist. It's just something that I think many of us are sensing in as we make these jumps in our understanding. The other thing I'd like to say, because we are going through so much at the moment, there's no dress rehearsal for this kind of supercharged evolution at dizzying speed we're going through, and for many people it really is overwhelming. We can't keep up, we can't keep pace, and we just have to allow ourselves that rest time. I mean, on Saturday night I slept for 13 hours. That was a record. I fell asleep on the sofa in my clothes and woke up the next morning still in my clothes 13 hours later. So give yourself a break, be kind to yourself in all that we're experiencing. We don't always have to keep up with the energy. We need to take time out sometimes. Be kind to yourself. But a thought I think will help people, and I absolutely believe this in the depths of my being, in my bones, that there is not just one reality on this earth. There is one consensus reality, and broadly we all have to live in that or can see that, but there are many different aspects of that reality. I mean, my reality is not only different from my next door neighbor's reality, I know it's completely different, but those of us who say live in a rural area in the Western world have got a different reality from people living in horrendous war zones. It's a very different reality. Or maybe you'd call it, yeah, it's a different aspect of the reality. So I really want to say to you that these different higher realities exist right now. We don't have to create them. They are already present. And evidence for that, because, you know, I think if we look at the mess that the 3D world is in, we think it's going to take us eons to sort out every one of these problems. You know, the war, the death, the poverty, the misery, you know, it's going to take way beyond my lifetime and many lifetimes. That's if we're thinking in linearity. But there are many different timelines and realities available to us. And if we just take the simple example of, you know, if we have a particularly deep meditation, suddenly we open our eyes and the colors are brighter. It's like everything's, you know, the light switch has been turned up and everything feels lighter and easier. We've had that simple experience, many of us. And in a bigger way, I've often written, probably I won't mention his name here, but many of you will know exactly who I mean. I attended 14 of this gentleman's workshops many years ago and witnessed many, many miracles. There are so many miracles in those, because people had gone on a very different, disciplined series of meditations and inner work, and they just shed terminal health conditions, congenital conditions, you know, irreversible conditions. It was just phenomenal. And I remember, this must have been 20 years ago, but it stuck with me because there was one particular lady I remember called Susan. And Susan had returned to a workshop, having previously experienced one, and she'd been diligently doing the meditations. And when she'd attended previously, she had stage 4 cancer. It was very advanced cancer, and there was very little hope for her, according to the doctors. She came back and there was no trace of the cancer. She was given the all clear by the doctors, who were baffled. And she stood up in tears and reported this to the group. And I remember the gentleman running that workshop said, "And is there still a Susan in a different reality with stage 4 cancer?" And that really stuck with me. That we don't have to live in this current 3D reality, or even solve all the problems. We can change in a moment. Even a little bit, we can change in a moment to a higher timeline because we've already created those higher timelines. Dozens of them exist. We can change in a moment just by bare feet on the grass, listening to the birds, meditating, breath work, whatever you choose. We can make little jumps. But that's how, if we all start to focus on what we want to create, on those things, the energy of the 3D world just shrivels. It just shrivels and turns to dust. So we don't have to solve the problems. We have to put our focus elsewhere. And then it can change in a moment, even a little bit, 1 degree, 2 degrees. Then we can start to make bigger jumps, to make very big jumps. I mean, I've been blown away by the reports that people are sending to me about what they're experiencing right now. Many of them from the simple 15-minute meditation on a Sunday evening that was just an idea. I mean, phenomenal experiences of hundreds of galactic beings who are benevolent and loving joining us and willing us on our pathway of evolution. You know, it brings me to tears. We are making big jumps in shifting our focus. This has been a long video. If you're still with me at the end, God bless you. I know it's been a bit of a meander, but I really hope some of what I've been saying has been helpful, because we are moving so fast through this. Keep your anchor, keep your stillness, keep your stability, and find simple ways to do that. God bless. Thank you for being with me. Don't forget, have a wonderful new supermoon in Taurus on the 7th, 8th, and don't forget to set a very clear intention for that time and a clear intention for the Earth too. Lots of love. Bye for now.